Welcome back, everybody, to the South End Zone. I am Chad. You see Tyler, and of course, we have a special guest, Jeremiah Campana, one of our Ohio State homers. We got another one coming in soon. Drew Sample will be here in just a minute, but it's national championship time. And look, we we love the SEC. We know the SEC is the best conference in football and becoming the best conference in all of sports because we're taking over basketball too, apparently. But we have to give credit where it is due, and in this case, Ohio State is right there, right for the picking for another national championship. I don't know what it is, Jeremiah. You guys have this uncanny ability to, as soon as a new system is put in place, to win the first national championship under that new system. Maybe you can go 10 years with or less than 10 years without winning one this time after you take this one. But how you feeling? You've always been like a little whatever the opposite of Pollyanna is about the Buckeyes. How are you feeling about this one?
Well, listen, man, I can't start being glasses half full now. I feel like it's my pessimism that's got him through these playoffs and into the championship game.
You, you,
So
you sound like Tyler. Tyler bets against Georgia so that they can win.
you know what's really crappy is for like the last 10 years, I put $100 preseason on Ohio State to win the national championship. And I've done that every year for the last 10 years. And guess what I didn't do this year?
So you are exactly like Tyler, then, is what you're saying. It's the same exact model. Like you can't win money and be happy at the same
Nope,
time. Like,
I can't.
it doesn't.
It's a
You gotta
curse.
pick.
Like,
You gotta
you
pick
can't.
one or the other.
It won't let us happen. It won't let it happen, Jeremiah. I don't know what it is. The gambling god's not allowed that to be so. So I have to hedge my own happiness with money.
You got to. But yeah, I'm excited, obviously, but I'm still like, Notre Dame, despite the fact that they haven't played, the most top tier opponents coming into here. They're still playing pretty good. They're coached
Yeah.
well. I know Tyler, we were talking before we started rolling here, that you think Ohio State's going to beat the brakes off of them. I don't know, man. I don't know. I think if Ohio
I'll
State
give my
wins,
prediction.
8.5 points is the spread, I believe.
Mhm.
I can see Notre Dame. I can see this being a close one, guys. I really can if Ohio State pulls this off. I don't know. I'm nervous. I don't know what to think. Tough defense from Notre Dame. Great offense from. I'll tell you what. And tell me if you guys agree with this. It is clear that during the Michigan game, Ryan Day was calling the plays and not Chip Kelly.
Yes, run,
So,
pass.
so my
You
question,
sure?
for you is there with so that's the one thing that we haven't talked about. We were talking before about the path that Notre Dame took to get here, and it's like, okay, so didn't beat anybody in the regular season of note, really. Like it's, I mean, the Texas A&M game week one maybe, but that was with Connor Wegman, and they were clearly a much better team with Marcel Reed than they were with Connor Wegman at quarterback. So like I don't even know if it's the same. It's like an apples to oranges comparison looking at that game in week one versus how Texas A&M was playing later in the year, and just like who Notre Dame is at this point, because they lost to Northern Illinois after that, the
Mm-hmm.
most embarrassing loss of anybody who was in national championship contention. By far, I eliminated them from the
Me too.
playoffs in week two after that loss because I'm like, no, that's it. Like you're done. I don't want to hear it anymore. Like that should be a disqualifier. Apparently it wasn't because here they are. But then you get to the playoff and they beat a very unproven Indiana team. They're playing in South Bend, so they've got the home environment and all that stuff. And Indiana just looked completely outmatched, even though they did the very Kurt Signetti thing of coming back and backdooring, making it look less embarrassing than it was, just like they did against you guys, where they get a late touchdown to make it look like they didn't get the brakes beaten off of them, and then they go and beat a Georgia team who's playing with a backup quarterback who's playing in his first start ever, and just thrown into like, hey, go win the Sugar Bowl, get to the semis. And then this past week they beat a James Franklin coached Penn State team, and so the thing that leads me to next is like, Penn State probably should have won that game, but James Franklin got in the way, as he does. Is Ryan Day going to get in the way? Because that's something that he has done in similar situations. Are you worried about that?
Of course, I'm worried about that, especially if it's a close game. I mean, you see, like we can't rely on the kicker. We've talked about this on your show. So if it comes down to a last second field goal, forget it. Ohio State's lost. Ohio State, he'll call the exact wrong plays to be just outside of his range. So he has to kick it from about 2 to 3 yards farther than he normally does, and he'll whip it right or left, and that's how Ohio State loses. So if
Set him
Ohio
up on
State's
the
gonna
wrong
win,
hash and
yeah,
everything.
yep, you know it. You absolutely know it. So if Ohio State wins this game, they got to at least come close to covering that spread of 8.5.
I agree. I think if Ohio State wins, it's not by a slim margin. I think if Notre Dame wins, it's by the last second field goal. Marcus Freeman coaches the perfect game. Gets it. I mean, Marcus Freeman at every point of the playoff has had one or two moments where he's like, "Gotcha," to the other coach. He did it to us, against Georgia, where like he did it to Kurt Signetti, where it's like it's fourth and 1.5, 4th and 1. It looks like they're going to punt, and they take the punt team off, bring on the offense. Be like, are we going to snap it? Are we not? Are you going to jump? Who knows? You're going to call timeout. What are you going to do? And you jump off sides, and it's a free play. Like, he's like, gotcha. Like, he pulled against Chris Signetti where he made him burn a timeout, in his own half of the on their half of the field. Like, I think that Freeman's going to have to coach his perfect game. And what do you think about it's an Ohio State alum coaching against Ohio State in the Natty, Jeremiah?
Oh man, it's I mean, he knows this program inside and out. He should have beat us that year. He had what was that play? One less man on the field than they should have had.
Yeah.
That game was Notre Dame's for the taking. So I think him knowing the program is going to help him, but at the end of the day, I mean, Ohio State, we have the overall better coaching staff and the better talent on the field. So if Chip Kelly calls the offense that he's been calling all playoffs, if Knowles, this defense is playing lights out, man. If they can contain the quarterback, it's going to be real tough for Notre Dame. Will Howard, though, is guaranteed at least one interception. I think turnovers could play a factor if he throws more than one, but he's good for one a game. So we'll see how that. And like you said,
where they are too is
yeah,
big. If you're inside your own 30, or if you're driving and you're about to score and you turn it over in the red zone, throw it. If you're on your own 45 and you throw one down to the 15, it's just like a punt on third down. It's not
yeah,
really that big of a deal. But it's to me, I think the mere turnover margin is often overblown. It's when those turnovers occur and
yeah,
how they occur. Like the Georgia fumble at the end of the
Yeah.
first half was devastating
Yep.
because you're going into the half down 6-3. Maybe you get into field goal range, kick a field goal, make it 6-6. Worst case scenario, 6-3, unless you get strip sacked and you give them a doorstep touchdown with 20 seconds left in the first half. So that's it's are they going to be these critical errors, or is it going to be something that's more of, it's 3rd and 18, you're on your own 38, and Will Howard tries to hit a deep ball and it gets picked off by the safety inside the 15. That's, to me, that's, like I said, it's like punting on third down. It's not that big of a deal. It's not the same as what he did against Michigan, which was
right.
awful.
I give Will Howard and Ryan Day a lot of credit for calling that QB draw, QB, up the middle on 4th and 2, like, and then kind of middle-ish of the field, more towards, obviously they're scoring half, but and Will Howard, I think could have ripped that one if he wouldn't have fell
Dude,
over.
He totally
it was the most Will Howard thing to do, to trip on his feet and fall.
Turf Monster got him big
But
time. But
yeah.
it was crazy though, because like that they were you listen to the commentary of that game, and it was like everybody knew it was coming and they still couldn't stop it.
No,
Like
they did not. I didn't see it coming.
everybody's like, this is the time, QB draw, it's coming.
No.
And then it was just like, nope, they can't stop it anyway. And it's hard when you're in that kind of situation and you have those weapons on the outside, and you have, whether it was, I don't even remember who was in the backfield on the play, it was Travion Henderson or Quinshon Judkins, but either way. And then the other thing too, like, we don't really talk about this because the game ended up going the way that it that it ended up going up, and the Jack Sawyer touchdown was the big play. Obviously, speaking of strip sacks, geez,
Yeah.
strip sack of all strip sacks. But like, I think it gets way too little play. That Travion Henderson 75-yarder to end the first half was
Yes.
a killer
hmm
because they're just trying to like see if they can get 30 yards and get into field goal range with something safe, which is what Jordan should have done against Notre Dame. Throw a screen pass or something like that. But like nobody's expecting to house a screen on first down with 20 seconds left in the first half. And
Perfect
here we
play call.
are. It's just like what a terrible, what an awfully executed defensive play by Texas. And that was really like Texas was gaining momentum, and that was where it just kind of turned around and flipped on its head for them. So, so let's talk a little bit about that, like because we've talked about kind of a preview of what's coming in the national championship game, Jeremiah, but let's give you a little bit of time here to bask in the glow and glory of that victory. What you got, Tyler?
I wanted to ask one question.
Okay.
Anybody else but Jack Sawyer? Come on. Like,
I know, right?
it had to be Jack Sawyer in that moment. Like, I immediately hit the group chat. I was like, it had to be Jack Sawyer. You said
Yep.
80 yards to the heart of the South, like the whole other
Mhm.
direction. What'd you think about that, Jeremiah? It had to be him, right? I thought it was awesome.
You couldn't. I mean, that was Jesus planned moment. Like you couldn't have
Mhm.
like scripted that any better for a movie if you were writing
Mhm.
one. That was. I mean, there's certain plays that live in Ohio State lore. There's Holy Buckeye. Craig Krenzel down to Purdue in the final seconds of the fourth quarter, just tosses it up to Michael Jenkins, and instead of
Mhm.
saying "Holy ish," our announcer says "Holy Buckeye" because he couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
You got Maurice Claret fumbling the ball, then going down and recovering his own fumble. That'll live
Mhm.
forever. Then Ezekiel
Or
Elliott,
no,
80
he
yards
went
to
and
the
stripped Sean
yeah,
Taylor from behind. Like it
yeah.
was like Taylor took it 30 yards and he ran him down from behind and then ripped it from him as he's going out of bounds. That was crazy.
Yep, that play lives forever. Then 80 yards to the heart of the South, Ezekiel Elliott against Alabama, and now this one. I mean, it's only a handful of plays throughout history that'll live
Mhm.
forever. He just cemented his legacy with that one play. Now, if we can finish the job, I mean, it'll just icing on the cake.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was awesome. But now you can bask. I just wanted to get that out there.
Oh, it was lovely because you were worried, right? I was still worried that Texas is gonna, kind of make this a final like push to maybe tie it up or whatever.
Well, they
Um,
should have. They were at
yeah,
the 2 yard line. They were like
They
inside
called
the
a,
two. I think
a
they're
pitch
like the
seven
one and a
yards
half.
backwards.
and that's
Yeah.
you wondered because Ohio State's had good red zone defense all year, but you
Mhm.
wondered how good it really was because you're making red zone stops against,
Mhm.
maybe not the best teams. Penn State, had a couple red zone
Mhm.
stops that was probably their best performance. But through this playoffs, they've had good red zone defense, and that just cemented it that this Ohio State red zone
Yeah.
defense is stellar.
Yeah.
And
Well,
defense
and
across the board is stellar.
I can't help but question though, like the play call in that instance because it's to me, I never understand why. Like I don't know. To me, it's like if you're gonna do something like that, it's got to be misdirection. I don't like the just blunt, just blatant, obvious
Mhm.
toss to the edge, and it's like, all right, go outrun all these guys from 7 yards, you know, in the backfield. Like, all right, good luck, buddy,
Yeah,
because all it
secondaries
takes
are
is
too athletic now.
yeah, you've got to do something that misdirects. You could have like run play action to the right roll or to the left, rolled right, try to hit the tight end on the in the
That's what I
flat or
thought
in
they
the
were gonna
corner or something
do.
like that.
Is throw it to
And
the
and
short
then
side.
right, and then when they did what they did, it now your whole playbook is limited because you can't just run the ball because you're setting yourself up. So then what do we end up with? Exactly what happened, which
Yep.
is a play that takes too long to develop because you're waiting for these crossers to come open. And it just gave Sawyer just enough time. So I kind of yes, the all due credit to Ohio State's defense because obviously like you got the stop that pushed them back to 3rd and 7 instead of, or I mean, a 2nd and 7 instead of second and goal from the 1.5 if it's an incomplete pass or something. Um, and obviously running the ball up the middle against that front was not the choice either. So I understand the edge versus up the middle, because you're just asking for it to be 2nd and 2 if you run it up the middle. Um, but when you set yourself up where you're that far behind the chains in that tight
Mhm.
space, you're asking for it, and Ohio State rose to the challenge, and then not only did they do that, but like Sawyer House in that one was crazy, and it's funny too because like he was not moving very fast. He was moving. He was moving fast. Where he picked it up, wasn't nobody going to catch him anyway. So he's
You got to
just
wonder also if Quinn Ewers feels like he shouldn't have taken his $1 million and went home. Could have stuck it out at Ohio State. Is he having
for
regrets?
real.
I
For
mean,
real.
probably at this point. I mean, dude, that was. I think that Sark also up until that point. I'm not the biggest fan of him nowadays, but I think he called a good game for the
Hmm.
most part up until that point. And I literally, had a few drinks with the friends, and I was like, they're gonna like. I was literally like pointed to like the short side of the end zone. I was like, you're gonna see a guy come open here, and of course, yours takes that first throws out of bounds where the guy was a guy right there, and then they throw the short side toss too.
Hmm.
That's the other
Yeah.
thing. They didn't even give you like the whole right side to
Right
kind
to
of
the boundary.
maybe, but still, it's like you telegraph a toss play with Ohio State's secondary, like heat-seeking missiles coming down the pipe. You're not going
Mhm.
anywhere. And then we know it's 4th down territory. So what are they going to do? They're going to pin their ears back and they're going to come get the quarterback, and that's exactly what they did. I
Mhm.
mean, I give it was a great game. It was honestly a way lower scoring game than I thought it was going to be,
Yeah.
and a way closer game. I thought Ohio State's had like the best run through the playoff that you could possibly have as far as opponents, and other than Tennessee, but you beat Tennessee, who we thought okay, the SEC team is coming up to the Big Ten country and it's going to play the shoe, destroyed them. And then it's like, okay, now I have to go to Pasadena and play the #1 team in the country again, who we lost to previously, boat race them, and then I
Mhm.
would have to play the SEC representative again and took care of business. So I give them a lot of credit.
I mean, yeah, it was easily like the toughest road
Hmm.
that you could even dream up when you looked at how the setup was for the teams that were in the tournament and what the possibilities could be. The only one that was kind of an easy matchup, I would say, is the home game against Tennessee round one. But even still, that's not a walkover. And but like yeah, to go beat Oregon in the Rose Bowl, a team that was undefeated and had beaten you earlier in the year, and then to go and do what you did to Texas is yeah, it was crazy.
Do you think
That's
it's still? Do you think it still shakes out this way if the playoffs start right away and there's no long layover for the home team?
I think so. I think there's at least a little bit less rust to knock off. I think the only team that needed the time was us, and we still didn't do much with it, because we needed time with the quarterback with the ones. But yeah, I don't know who tweeted this. I mean, you can have many opinions on this. It's like, oh no, it's Feinbaumer said it something. It's like the Army Navy game is a wasted Saturday. They need to move the playoff up. I was like,
yeah,
well, I mean, hey, I
I
love the Army
agree.
Navy game. I think it's awesome, but it could be mixed in with a bunch of. It could be on championship weekend, or it could be the Sunday or
Mhm.
something. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Mhm. Yeah, it's okay. So, well, we tried to get Drew up. He was on the stage, but he didn't have video, so I took him off, and then he disappeared. But anyway, we were waiting on Mr. Drew Sample to come in. But yeah,
Drew Sample,
I,
he's got all the backstage stuff. He's an
I
actual
know,
reporter
right?
here.
Yeah, well, I'm waiting for him to
Yeah,
give
the
us his
actual
say.
insider
But
Ohio
Right.
State.
yeah, but if you think about it, so like when championship weekend was what, like the first weekend in December.
Yep.
The first games for those teams that played in the championships, that won those championships and got first round buys, their next game was New Year's Eve or New Year's Day.
Right.
That's a crazy long layoff.
That's almost a month.
And I get it that it's a bowl game type layoff.
Right.
Still.
However, however, when you have that layoff and the team you're playing against just played a week and a half ago, and they got a week and a half layoff. So like the 10-day layoff is a pretty nice. You can rest some guys. You might be able to give give a guy 3 days off of practice and he still gets 4 practices in.
Mm-hmm.
Unlike in the regular season, where if you take 3 days off, you're missing the whole week of practice, and you may or may not even be available for the game. So I think that, yeah, they probably need to look at that. And I know there's been several articles written where they're talking about how the committee people, and some of the like university presidents and whatever else, and athletic directors are talking about what they can do to tweak this thing, because
It's tough. It's the bowl game
yeah,
tie-in.
well, it's just like the NIL and transfer portal stuff. Every one of these things, it's like you don't know until you put this rule in place what loopholes are going to be exploited. And like there's some of the stuff that a lot of us saw coming that they just like I'm like, man, y'all better watch it. It's gonna turn into pay for play. Sure enough, it's become pay for play.
Yep.
All we wanted was like, let a kid make a Gatorade commercial.
Yep. Or let their money,
Let a kid,
their jerseys be sold in the bookstore.
yeah, let them
Yeah.
sell. Yeah, let them sell their jerseys and get a cut of their jersey sales. Not, hey, if you come to Michigan, the second richest man in the world will give you $12 million.
Because his
Yeah.
wife wants
That's
him
not.
to. That's the craziest part.
All the NCAA had to do was get their heads out of their butts. I mean, the writing was on the wall. This was coming down the pipe, and they decided to
Mhm.
fight it in court. They go to Congress and testify like they did. They were fighting it tooth and nail instead of embracing it and being like, okay, let's put the boundaries and rules around it. If they had done
Mhm.
exactly what we're talking about, we would not be here right now. It would be
Yeah.
just
And
$20 for autographs and, filming the local car commercial and maybe getting a
right,
free car, whatever. Like that's what we
Yeah.
do.
right.
What?
Well, yeah, the stuff that they used to do illegally,
Yeah,
just let them
exactly.
do
Right.
that
Todd
stuff
Gurley.
legally. Except that the other part of it is you should be able to get a Nike deal from Phil Knight and not have to go to Oregon to do it.
Right.
Right.
Exactly.
You know what I
You
mean?
wear
Like,
Nike
like
shoes.
let's bring up Bryce Underwood again. All right, so went to Michigan, whatever. Yes, I'm a little salty about that because he was committed to LSU, and I think he really wants to be at LSU. If you listen to him talk about it, he's like, "Well, I had to do what was best for my family." Like he's not. He doesn't sound like he's like, "I'm Michigan,
Go blue.
go Big Blue." Like he's
Yeah.
not that. That's not it. He wanted to be at LSU, but how do you turn down? I think they're saying now it's like 13.5 million total or whatever.
Look, that's an NFL
Well,
contract.
yeah, but the thing is, like, he should be able, if he's that good, he should be able to have the Nike deal too, the
Right.
Gatorade or Body Armor or whatever deal
The
too.
Celsius athletes
Yeah,
on the
whatever it is, and it shouldn't just be like, nope, you have to do this thing with Barstool and go to Michigan, and since you didn't come to Oregon, you're not getting any Nike money. Like that's reserved for Oregon kids. Like
Yeah.
that's not the way that this is supposed to be. And then you're having this thing. And it's funny too. I'm waiting for Drew to come in here because I know he's got some stuff to say about Brian Kelly, and that's one of the other narratives that's going on right now is Brian Kelly versus Marcus Freeman and Notre Dame, and like Brian Kelly leaving Notre Dame because they didn't have the resources and everything. And Brady Quinn, I don't know if y'all saw this, but Brady Quinn kind of went off on one of these shows on Fox or whatever, talking about how here he is, he's back. Let's see if we can get him on the stage. Drew, I may be able to hear you. I cannot see you.
Yeah, I can't get my camera to work. I don't know why.
Okay.
I
So
restarted my
Drew is
computer.
there. All
Yeah,
right.
I'm here.
Just like a
Are,
Big Ten fan, all noise and no substance.
Great.
are you on a
Um,
laptop? You probably got that little button next to your camera.
No, not on a laptop, on a desktop at the office. Yeah, Brady Quinn talked about it on his radio show with LeVar Arrington and Jonas Knox. He talked about he's super butthurt that Brian Kelly left and said that stuff, and Brian Kelly wasn't really wrong at the time.
He was not.
And
and
so
and
then,
Brady Quinn proved him right by saying, and so then we decided we were going to actually invest in this university and trying to get like the resources that Brian Kelly didn't have.
Which is what they did,
It's
and
like
now
that's
they have
exactly what
them.
Brian Kelly
And
was
see
talking about
what
and why he
happens
left.
in a short. And Brian Kelly was what the Notre Dame coach for 15, 20, some absurd amount of time.
17
And,
years. I think.
yeah, and Marcus Freeman, with the resources that Brian Kelly wanted, took them to a national championship in less than 5.
Yeah, and also with half of Brian Kelly's roster that
Right,
needed
that's also
starting.
true.
yeah, but most of the playmakers aren't. Brian Kelly's roster.
Yeah,
You
gotta
guys-
let
Well,
him
no,
know.
but it's again, it's
LSU
that
fans
resources.
love to talk about that, man. Like, oh yeah, but it's it's Brian Kelly's recruits. Like, I don't care. Marcus Freeman, I would say, is far superior to Brian Kelly.
We'll
I
see.
mean,
If
you got
he gets his ass kicked in the national championship, he's exactly the
He's
same as Brian
equal,
Kelly.
except he won playoff games. That's the weird thing. Is like, how do you measure it now? It's not just one
Well,
game anymore.
he won playoff games, but if this had been the 4-team playoff era, he would not have even made the playoff.
No,
Whereas
neither would the
Brian Kelly made
Buckeyes.
it twice. Brian Kelly made it
yeah.
twice, and Brian Kelly made it to a national championship game when it was a 2-team playoff at the time. So
If
And
you
they
see
got
them anywhere else, do
destroyed.
they get here? If you see
Yeah.
them anywhere else, do they? If they have to run
Yeah,
Ohio
right.
State schedule,
right. If they don't get the easiest cakewalk schedule to get there,
The only
then
easier schedule is Penn State. Penn State had the easiest road by far.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
then I would even say Texas. I mean, Arizona gave them the kitchen sink and more and almost beat them.
Mhm.
But like, on
Yeah.
paper, if we're talking like easiest road, we're talking about NIL. We have 2 transfer quarterbacks playing each other for the national championship. How about that? 2,
Yeah.
we have the Duke transfer and the Kansas State transfer. Duke, playing in this game. Is this the most NIL thing or what? We have 2 transfer poor quarterbacks for the Natty.
That's kind of the MO these days, though. It's like Dan Lanny's good at it. And honestly, Brian Kelly was pretty good at that with getting Jaden Daniels in there last year. But I think like you've seen that a lot more with Oregon and other teams. Just they seem to know like you really have to have like a good combination of like lifers and then
You do.
mercenaries.
Mhm.
I think you have to have your foundation built around your guys that you
Yeah.
recruited, and then you have to, plug and play with some dudes who are going to buy in for the year and also give you their best season possible. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
I will say the difference with like both Burrow and Daniels is like they both transferred for 2 years.
Mhm.
They weren't one and done mercenaries so much as they weren't getting the opportunity where they were, and so they moved to another place and brought 2 years of eligibility with them. And actually, like both, I wouldn't say struggled, but Joe Burrow 2018 was nowhere close to Joe
Nope.
Burrow 2019,
hey
and
guys, I got
Jaden
to take off.
Daniels. All right, man.
I
Peace.
appreciate
Oh,
Jeremiah.
Appreciate it.
perfect
Go
timing. Look
Buckeyes.
at that.
And Jaden Daniels, was kind of had a very similar and that was actually the argument I was making to people 2 years ago when they were pushing for Garrett Nussmeier to replace Jaden Daniels after the 2022 season, because they saw some things that they like, you can't just have a running quarterback, you got to be able to throw the ball. I'm like, relax, he's going to be fine. Like look at the numbers Burrow had in his first year when he transferred, and then look at what he did in the next year, and he won a Heisman and won a national championship. And if we had a half-ass decent defense, I think LSU probably is at least in the playoff and maybe even
Yes.
pulls the whole thing down.
If you didn't have
But
to
we
score
could not
50
stop
points.
anybody at all.
Yeah.
So we wasted the Jaden Daniels Heisman season on losing close games by never being able to stop people. But let's talk about the Buckeyes and Notre Dame. Drew, that's why you're here.
Yeah.
We already
Jeremiah
Thank
went
you.
over it.
was the preview. Now Drew
What
Yeah.
gets
was
to get the
Jeremiah?
prediction.
Is he less doom and gloom now? Is he like, we're gonna lose to Notre Dame?
A little bit, but
He
I
said
think
it's his thing. He said it's the reason you're winning.
yeah, he said, yeah,
He
he's
really
claiming
should
credit.
stay that way. Andy, my co-host and fellow beat guy's the same. He's like, I made him pick Notre Dame because it was like, dude, no,
Oh,
you're picking Notre Dame. You've been picking everybody. You've been wrong the whole time.
stay wrong.
So yeah, I wanted him to stay. This is really bothering me that my camera's not working, guys. I
It's
have
like
no idea why
It's like
it's
you're the
not.
radio call-in. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You're the radio show.
Yeah, and I
Just-
didn't call in earlier because I was like, man, I don't want to sound like shit, but I had video, but now I don't have video. So,
It's all
um,
right.
but yeah, I think the biggest thing, man, is that I think Joel Klatt's kind of covered it, and Feinbaum, when I was trying to get in the first time, Joel Klatt's the guy that originally said like Army Navy should
Was
kind of
it?
like be the start of the season, then Feinbaum
I agree with
piggybacks
that.
on it. A lot of other people like have jumped on it because we all agree it's a stupid fucking game at this point
Make
where
that
it is
0.
because they're in the same division now.
Yeah, like they almost played each other back to back if
For the championship.
if the championship had ended up with, if they had been in the top of that conference,
Yeah.
they would have played each other twice back to back.
Yeah, which it luckily it didn't work out that way.
Right.
But it is kind of like instead of doing these games in Ireland, like to start out the season, which I guess you can still do that, but maybe start with Army Navy. I
Mm-hmm.
think the whole Ireland thing, like, why are we playing college football games in Ireland? I don't really understand that. Like, they're not joining any conference. There's no like
No,
college football. Is it to grow the sport in Europe so people watch
Yeah,
it
it's not
more?
like the
yeah,
NFL where they could potentially put a team there. It's like it's just I don't know if it's I mean, which I think
but
is like kind of cool, but like at the same time, you're sending very okay teams over there to play a
mhm.
week 0 game. I think you're right. I think honestly, having Army Navy when it's warm out in the beginning of the year would be cool. Like just like week 0 be Army Navy, and then you
I do think though, like the stuff with the Ireland game and like whatever other kind of weird stuff that they do, because I'm okay with the ones where they play. We played USC in Vegas, and
right.
there's been like the games in Dallas or in Houston or wherever. There'll be like one in the Rose Bowl or something. Like all these different neutral site early season games. I'm okay with those, but the whole thing of like sending a college team overseas to play a game out there where it's like and that's what the kind of the argument I made about the bowl games, how like the bowl games give us like a little bit of a window, but it's not really like you want to really know a true test of like who's better. Like play a home and home for like 10 years in the regular season, in the heart of the regular season. Then you'll be able to see like, okay, well, this team's better than this team or whatever. It's a bowl game is like a vacation with a football game on
Yep.
the end of it. And that's what those games are. And to me, it's just weird to have that be a game that counts. Like and yeah, you say this, it's some very okay teams. Thank God it's not like some,
I mean,
man,
Notre
what if
Dame was pretty hyped
Then
when they went to
they
Ireland
went
last
over.
year.
They played Navy though and
but they
beat
didn't
the
play.
brakes off them.
It wasn't a
Yeah.
real game though. That's what I'm saying. Like you're not going to have. It's not going to be Notre Dame against
Like,
Oregon
yeah.
over there. That
No,
would be stupid.
those schools don't they just want the money. Is Navy there
Right.
again this year? Did Navy play in Ireland again
No,
this year?
no, but it
It was
was the year
Georgia Tech, Florida
before.
State, wasn't it?
Georgia, and yeah, that was
Georgia
when we thought that DJU was going to beat up, and then Georgia Tech started the Florida State sucks train over in Ireland.
Yeah,
I
and
tell you, man, the CF like not putting Florida State in really seemed to kill that program because ever since then everyone transferred out and they
They,
like
well, they were also a team
well,
of mercenaries that didn't get
yeah.
yeah.
their one shot, and then I've been told that Norvell's offense is so unbelievably complicated that maybe only Jordan Travis was the only one to make it run, and that
Yeah.
was it. Like you were done after that. Like DJ, you could, that's what I've heard about that situation.
Mm.
That's interesting. What do you so what do you think about your I know we're here to talk about the national championship, but I posted it in the
Yeah.
thing. Carson Beck going to Miami, but his girlfriend's also going, and allegedly she might be getting some of his NIL. Like they might have
I
came as
think
a
they're going to be the
package.
first ever NIL couple. I think that's what it's really going to end up being. Like they're going to get deals as a twosome, as a like a you know what I mean, whatever. I
Oh,
don't care.
where they're a
I,
package deal like
Right, where
yeah,
like they
TV.
do commercials together. It's like Jason and Kylie
Yeah.
Kelsey or another famous athlete couple like doing shit
Yeah,
together.
so it's not
Like
like Paul Skeens and Olivia Dunn where like she
right.
has her own thing and then he's got his own thing and they don't ever appear
What
together except at like
right.
LSU
I think
games.
it's gonna be
Um,
both. Like I think they're gonna be like an NIL
yeah,
couple because like I mean they're gonna be at the same school and and
I
she's already become famous on her own right, it seems, and
yeah.
and so Beck's gonna come down there. The only thing that's gonna make me mad is if he has some random breakout season with Miami. Other than that, I don't care.
I
Like
think he's going to
goodbye,
throw a lot of
whatever.
interceptions. He threw too many interceptions this year. Like you were multiple
Yeah,
times like we need
three
somebody else
three
besides
pick
Beck.
Yeah,
games.
but he's played in the ACC, so he's going to be he's I don't know, like is it the same if you're playing against Duke and like I don't know
As
whoever
opposed to
it's
Alabama,
such a
Ole
weird
Miss.
conference now. Like you got
I
Cal and Stanford
I
in
think
there
it
and
yeah, I think the all coast conference, I think it's
Y'all
I think it
coast.
depends on like what kind of money goes in there, man. What kind of coaches, what they can
yeah.
do. I think Miami's really
I think he'll be okay. I don't think he's gonna like. I don't know. Like I mean, he wasn't. Like, he was peaking at the right time for us.
I
Post
think it's
in the
good
end of
for
the
Georgia
season.
to move on. I
I
think
think so too.
Georgia
I think Kirby. Kirby. If Kirby is The one bad thing I can say about Kirby is that he's loyal almost to a fault
Mm.
to some of these players who like we leave guys waiting in the wings too long, like Justin Fields, and it screws us. Like I mean, I'm never gonna, loyalty is one of the best qualities to have, but sometimes it's like you gotta see, maybe the potential of somebody, and maybe Carson Beck had some untapped potential that we never developed. I don't know, but throwing 3 picks a game is not how you win SEC football games or any football games for that matter.
No,
Yeah, we
apparently
did
it
it.
is.
We
Because
did
y'all
it.
still beat Texas.
I believe we were
it's
fighting our own destiny the whole season. We were
how do you
let's
lead
dig ourselves out of this hole, that we're down at half and win. We did that for the entire season, and then we just couldn't do it when it came
No, it's
down
pretty
to it.
amazing that they won the SEC with the most drops. Like
I
it was so
know.
frustrating because I bet on Georgia twice against Texas, and every time I'm like, I can't. Like I remember I bet on your guys' teams twice. The first time, like I was really bought into LSU playing Alabama at home at night,
Me too.
and that was like I wanted to talk so much shit to Chad, but I actually had money on the line. I was like, this sucks. Like, how do you do that? Like, how do you just because LSU is just very inconsistent.
Well, yeah, I can tell you how. It's because when Brian Kelly got here, and this is the other thing where it's like the whole comparison of Marcus Freeman to Brian Kelly. Like Brian Kelly set up Marcus Freeman with like a gold mine, and then Brian Kelly inherited a team that had 39 scholarship players and a corner, not a quarterback, but a corner playing quarterback in our bowl game the year before Brian Kelly got here. The whole what Ed Ogeron left was a complete mess. It was a dumpster fire, and Brian Kelly tried to patch it together with some of these like low grade transfer portal guys, getting guys from Southeastern and University of Louisiana at Lafayette and all these other like low hanging fruit transfer types to kind of patchwork our secondary together. And he got rid of Corey Raymond, who had built. I mean, you go look at they call LSU DBU for a reason. You go back and look at the guys in the past when Corey Raymond was there, and it's littered with like NFL first round draft picks and guys who are like Pro Bowlers in the secondary. And Corey Raymond goes to Florida, spends a couple of years over there. It's not the same because a lot of his Louisiana connections, he couldn't get those guys to go all the way to Florida. He comes back to LSU and immediately it's like number one corner in the class this year coming to LSU, number one corner in the state coming to LSU. And so like you look at our secondary and we have like Jordan Gilbert, a transfer from I don't remember where he came from, but we have like all these like transfer corners and safeties, and then like a couple of dudes who were like three and low 4-star guys, from the high school ranks that we've been trying to develop. We're finally starting to build like a roster with a secondary, and then we went in the transfer portal and got like 2 studs out of the portal this time, from like Power 5 schools, not or what Power 4, not these little uh, one double
Junior
A
college hope.
FCS bullshit, like we actually, because I think what LSU was trying to do, and that's what I was saying in our chat too, is I think LSU, Georgia, Alabama, maybe a couple of other schools, maybe Ohio State early, we're kind of operating under this like we're going to keep doing what we're doing. We're not going to do. Clemson was another one. Like Dabo Sweeney is
They're
finally starting
finally
to
hitting the
actually
portal.
hit the portal, but kind of doing this like, look, we're not going to go just like throw money around at these dudes for 1 year and all this other
Yeah.
nonsense. We're going to be smart about it. We're going to whatever. And it's like then you have like Ohio State spend $30 million on a roster and Ole Miss spend 20 something million on a roster,
Mhm.
and it's
The number
like
keeps getting
what?
higher for
The
Ohio
number
State.
it
Pretty
will. It'll
sure
keep
it
it higher.
is about 20, but most of that money went to keep guys.
Who's funding that with Ohio State?
The Schottensteins and the next players, but a lot of it's the
Okay.
Schottensteins.
Mm.
Good
There's
lord.
there's a
We
couple.
need some NIL money down in Georgia. Jesus.
You're in a good
Yeah.
area. You're in Atlanta. Like I was actually talking to Dutch about it. And he was talking like the advantage that Big Ten has right now is the Big Ten now has like, I don't know, like 8 of the top 10 GDP or 6 of the top 10 GDPs, and most of it it's at the highest. So
Yeah.
it's like when it comes to like money that can go into the programs, I think that's why it's been a leveling of what's going on. I think that, you know, there was always this idea, and I'm not saying all SEC schools did it, but I've heard it was through churches or whatever. But like it was always like rumored that, you know, oh, they pay players or they'll do this or they do that. Like I don't know.
I mean, everybody was paying players though. Like it's like there like every campus had like dudes driving cars that they're like, how the hell did you get that car? Like
Yeah.
it was kind of the thing
But
in
now that it's
everywhere.
more in the open, like
Hmm.
Yeah.
schools that have a lot more, like you got to think too, OSU, they pump out like there's like 65,000 students just on Columbus's campus, which
Hmm.
is why there's so many people.
The
Notre Dame
alumni
is
base is
just,
huge.
yeah, Notre Dame has a lot of like fake, uh, like people are just always been fans just due to the television deals, just kind of like
Yeah.
the Atlanta Braves. Um, so Georgia's pretty good because they got Atlanta, LSU, obviously. Like, I mean, New Orleans is a pretty big city. I think that like there's going to be a lot of SEC schools that are going to struggle now because I don't think that they're going to be able to get the money that other schools can now. But
No, I mean we've all I mean Kirby's thing, at least in the last since NIL's been a thing. It's like he'll give like you earn NIL as a player at Georgia. Like he doesn't throw the bag at recruits. And he
yeah,
hasn't thrown the bag at transfers. Hence why the transfer class that we got was what it was, which is the only person who did anything was ETN and the Miami kid until he got arrested. But other than that, it's like, it's obviously Beck drives a Lamborghini, but he earned whatever, got that as a player at Georgia, not before. So I
Hmm.
think it's like Kirby needs to learn to throw the bag at kids that we want to come. Because like talk about quarterback talent. I know Chad and I talk about this. Like the top quarterbacks in Georgia don't stay in Georgia. Very rarely do
no,
they. Like we talk about, I think it's still the record. It might have been broken, but for a long time, the all-time passing leader in the state of Georgia was Deshaun Watson. Did he go to Georgia? No. Did Trevor Lawrence go to Georgia? No. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? Like it's like guys like that, like leaving the state, like the top quarterbacks in these classes don't stay. It's like we're getting guys from other states. Beck's a Florida guy, and then our backups are usually a good bunch of Georgia boys that have always wanted to go to UGA, regardless of their stance. You know what I mean? That's a lot of what
it's
Georgia's
good to have
roster is
the
made
true
up of.
believers.
Is guys who just have from Georgia. We're always going to go to UGA, no matter how good they were. And so, I mean, I think we've started with a better. We got the Branch brothers from USC coming in. We got the Noah, the Texas A&M receiver coming in. So we're at least hitting the right position group.
Oh
But
yeah, Noah Thomas.
we have the whole offseason to talk NIL transfers
Well,
when
they
those
have,
are.
so you have till like April when the ruling
Yeah.
goes through, then it goes to revenue sharing, which NIL deals are still going to exist. It's just not going to be like right now, they're just paying players and they're calling it NIL.
Yeah.
And it's like there's still going to be like, you know, fucking Riley Leonard and his Great Clips deal, or
Mhm.
Will Howard and his Grippo's Chips deal.
But we
Or,
weren't talking about it. Like we were okay. Like NIL in my mind and Chad's mind, Jeremiah's mind was, Johnny Manziel talked about he used to see those number 2 jerseys in the Texas A&M bookstore, wondering where his cut was. You know what I mean? The stuff like
yeah.
that. Or Todd
What about
Gurley.
Tim Tebow?
Give Todd Gurley his 3 games back, NCAA.
I
Yeah.
Right
think
now.
there's a lot of like crazy shit that like, I mean, like, you know, Ryan Day made a big point to get Maurice Claret back, and it's like, fuck,
Hmm.
man, the Buckeyes recruiting class with AJ Hawk and Maurice Claret, like, how much better would how many more games would we have won if we would have still had Maurice Claret? Like, that was like a
Right.
huge loss.
Yeah.
It kind
Well,
of
and it
stunk. I
really
mean,
fucked his whole career up. Like
it
it
fucked
even
most
messed up
of his
his
life
NFL
up,
career.
man.
Yeah,
Like
his
he's
whole.
back on his feet now, but yeah, like he tried to come back. He was playing that. Yeah, it like because he won that game against Miami. Like
Hmm. Hmm.
so it's interesting to think about. But speaking of the national championship, so
Let's do
Yeah.
it.
why I'm here. So I think, I mean, the biggest thing, man, is it's like, you know, a lot of people are saying this, but like, I mean, Joel Klatt, I feel like it's really, I find him and Gus Johnson to be super annoying. Um, when they're doing it. Maybe Gus Johnson's funny and stuff. I mean, I've heard some crazy things about Gus Johnson I probably should not air
Yeah,
out.
don't say that stuff on the air because
Oh,
I know what you're talking about. And I
yeah,
don't
me
want to hear
too.
it again.
Okay, I did tell you guys that. But
You did.
anyway,
Yeah.
Move
We
it.
don't.
Yep.
Joel Klatt, I think he's kind of broken it down right. Like OSU struggles when they don't play their brand of football, which they're not. There's too much like their offensive line is really too pieced together to just run up the middle and play like a traditional old school Big Ten style. They're not Big Ten style. I was really happy when we got Urban. We went away from like the traditional because we needed something different offensively. We weren't going to be able to. I mean, I just feel we're going to play. There's going to be. It's going to be dog fights that we're not necessarily like we were never really using our talented athletes the way we could playing that brand of football on offense. And now that like we're not doing that, the biggest thing I saw in the Texas game was, and it was interesting because Urban Meyer was like, they should play more conservative against Texas because of how good their D was. And then like come to think of it, like Travion Henderson's 175-yard touchdown. Like that was the biggest. I didn't realize that was the biggest pass play they'd given up all
That was
year.
a screen too.
Yeah,
It wasn't like
it
you're
was-
talking about conservative. Like a
wasn't a
screen
deep
is
ball.
not doing anything crazy. It's just like he broke it.
Well,
they
he
were
was
really just trying to get into field goal range.
He was trying to repent for his bonehead penalty he made. And I think that, like, honestly, but there wasn't enough like creativity on the offensive side, but they did enough to win. And like they shot themselves a lot with their penalties and stop drives because they're very. It reminded me a lot of the Penn State game, like OSU shooting themselves in the foot and then still winning. But I think in Notre Dame gets teams to play their brand of football. They sucker them into it. They lull them into it. The Penn State game wasn't really hard because that was really their brand of football, and it was funny because Chad, I on the last show, you're like, what's Notre Dame going to do if Leonard gets hurt? And then here comes in Angeli, who's actually a way better passer than Riley Leonard.
Yeah.
It just picks apart Penn State's defense, gets them down, but Notre Dame's really good at winning the middle eight. So they like that's something Marcus Freeman, like he did it against Georgia. Really in the Indiana game, I don't know if I would say they won the middle eight because it was a pretty back and forth up until Jeremiah Love broke that big 98-yard touchdown. But they both teams had turned the ball over, and then right after that takeaway that Notre Dame had, they break off that big touchdown run. I think the biggest issue for Notre Dame is like how beat up they are. They're skilled players, especially, and they're just not as deep as the Buckeyes. But if they can get pressure on Will Howard and force him to throw to turn the ball over and just make it like a muddier brand of football, and and they could bait OSU into playing this stupid tougher. Well, you're not tough because you can't run it up the middle. It's like, well, that doesn't make you not tough. It's just, and it's something that Ryan Day, like it's some trap that he's fallen into. And I just think like it seems like Lou Holtz. I don't know if you guys saw Lou Holtz tweet.
Ryan Day's biggest enemy being Lou Holtz is the funniest.
Did you guys talk about that yet?
Well, didn't he like try to be like, oh, we have the heart, we have this, and then we're gonna win by 3.
Most recent was
like
responding to Pat McAfee, and like they were saying, is Lou Holtz going to be here? And here's Notre Dame's response to it in a tweet: if Notre Dame doesn't win, it's because it's because we want to preserve. Let me try and read again, guys. If Notre Dame doesn't win, it's because we want to preserve Ryan Day's job. I was originally going to be at the game in spirit, but now I'll be dragging my body along as well.
Lou Holtz is going to be in attendance in this game.
Yeah, 90-year-old Lou Holtz still talking shit.
Lou Holtz is going to be at the game.
Yeah, he's going to be at the game talking shit. And Ryan Day in the presser, somebody asked him about Lou. Have you guys talked since? He was like, no. I think it's going to be. I honestly, if Notre Dame can get OSU to play their brand of football, it's like Lou Holtz seems like he's doing his best to get Ryan Day to think his team's not tough. I think though with that Michigan loss, and I think even it was a pretty close call last week. I am of the impression that we are going to I mean, I think if we can get big plays, let's say they even have like they're boxing Jeremiah Love, get the ball to Travion Henderson in space.
Mhm.
That dude, if he gets the ball, he's going to break a big play. He broke the big play that pretty much won the game against that put us back in that game against Notre Dame last year that made us go up 10-0, and then we lost the middle eight because that's what Marcus Freeman's really good at. We did win the middle eight against Texas, which kept us in that game. Besides the stupid turnover in the early drive of the third quarter. But yeah, I think that's like the biggest thing is like if OSU can not play Notre Dame's brand of football,
Right, you can't.
They're not going to like that. That's where that's where OSU's not. They toughed it out against Texas. I think in that mainly a lot of people are talking about why didn't they put Arch in, and it's a lot of that's due. I think he got hurt. Like
I don't think they think you trust him fully yet.
I mean, he
I don't
almost
think they do.
fumbled.
He
Lathan
did.
Ransom really tattooed him in his back. He looked pretty it looked like that really fucking hurt.
Yeah.
And then I just think too, it's just one of those things, man. I mean, OSU's goal line defense is really good. So it was a good game though, man. It's nice to it's nice that we were talking early and I was like, well, we'll see how these games play out, Chad. I don't think it's gonna go so well for the SEC this year. And Chad just always wants to give me this long dissertation about the last 20 years. And if you really look at it, Chad, to be in all fairness, the SEC's really dominated the Big Ten for the last 40. Up until we had a couple years, I think 97 was the year where Alabama lost in overtime by missing the extra point to Tom Brady in Michigan. But besides that, man, we'd have teams that I thought were really good. They're like the Big Tens. We're just really competitive. We beat each other, and then I remember Illinois playing LSU in the Sugar Bowl, and that game did not go the way I thought. It was.
I was at that game actually.
That was an awesome game. LSU just really beat the shit out of a pretty good Illinois team.
Yeah, it was 47-24 or something like that. It was
the score. It was way more dominant than that. And I thought Kirk Kittner was a pretty good quarterback, but Jamarcus Russell just wanted to remind everybody why he was who he was. But anyway.
Wait, that wasn't
that wasn't Russell?
Marcus Russell. No, that was before. That was Roland Davey.
Roland Davey, that's right. A different, very talented. Davey didn't get the that was before they really let black quarterbacks in the league like that. But he really didn't get the I feel like if Davey was playing today, it would be but now it's kind of reversed. Now we got two milquetoast white guys playing in that championship.
Well,
Nobody wants
here's
to
the
talk
funny
about
thing
it.
though.
And they look like they're related.
The funniest part about it though is that the two white quarterbacks that we have are dual threat quarterbacks. They're running they're quarterbacks that can get it done with their legs, and that's what's the funniest part to me is that it's not the Tom Brady, Joe Burrow, and Joe Burrow did a little bit with his feet, but not. I mean, he was really just sitting back there throwing the ball.
He's good at moving through the pocket. He's not.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. His mobility is behind the line of scrimmage. Yeah,
he's a lot like Phillip Rivers. Phillip Rivers would just see the pressure coming, especially in college, and he would know when to step out of it. And
that's one of the things I wish some of these guys would learn is that you look at like Donovan McNabb was really good at that. When he was playing with the Eagles, his biggest threat was not that he was going to run the ball. It was that if the play broke, he was going to move around behind the line of scrimmage, and then he was going to hit Deshaun Jackson or Terrell Owens or whoever it was deep over the top because of the threat that you thought he was going to run, and you can't guard people that long. And so it's just tough. But I wanted to ask you this: so with all the discussion about Ryan Day and Lou Holtz and everything else, and I talked about how Penn State should have won that game last week.
I told you.
And
I was
James Franklin got in the way of them winning.
Never got in the way, dude.
It's weird. I think that he should have played for overtime. And people want I've heard LeVar Arrington really go crazy. He was just people need to shut the hell up about James Franklin. Where we were after what happened with Joe Paterno and Bill O'Brien not really doing shit.
I can respect that.
And it's just you're knocking. I mean, they were stuck in the Big Ten East and then like they weren't going to beat Michigan or Ohio State, especially once Michigan got good. And now like they did have the easy path. They probably should have won that game, but that's kind of Notre Dame's football, though, man.
Yeah.
Like that is like a
suckered him into
Notre Dame
playing
football.
Notre
Like
Dame's game.
there's plenty of fucking opportunities for Georgia to make plays, and they just didn't. And it was weird. I remember watching that game with my buddy. He's a huge Notre Dame fan. He's like his whole family, I think, is Ohio State, but they're from like Northwest Ohio. So like he grew up watching Lute Holtz on the weekend, and like so every Saturday morning, he said like he would watch Notre Dame, and that was just him and I think a couple, like maybe his grandpa's team. And
a lot of those cases, there's a lot of people like that grew up. That was all you could watch.
Yeah, especially if you're, and he's not even Catholic, which is weird because Chad and I are both grew up Catholic, and neither of us neither of us like Notre Dame.
I can't stand Notre Dame. My dad, that was one of the things when I was growing up. My dad hated Notre Dame, and we're like, I come from like a multiple generations Catholic family, and there's a lot of them who can't stand Notre Dame. So we're not alone.
We like Notre Dame. Like we used to go to Saturday Mass because our priest was both a Notre Dame and Ohio State fan. And I don't think Ohio State and Notre Dame hadn't played since the 30s. And then it was like before the 90 games. And then so it'd be like the quickest mass ever. Go Irish, go Buckeyes. And there's like, because most of the fans in like Toledo are like, I mean, it's pretty split between Ohio State and Michigan. And then there's a huge chunk of Notre Dame fans too, because you're pretty close to all three universities.
Notre Dame is everywhere. Like, you'd think that, like, in terms of college football in Pennsylvania, it's Penn State and then Pitt. And no, it's Penn State, Notre Dame, and then Pitt. Like, it's like that's literally like what it comes down to.
Well, they're like the Dallas Cowboys,
right? They're ubiquitous.
College football.
Yeah. They're widespread, and everybody knows Notre Dame. They are a franchise, internationally known organization at this point.
Chad, they play in Ireland every year. That's what they should do.
What do you and I got to predict this game?
What were you asking me, Chad? I fucking derailed.
I was just so I was asking you about are you concerned at all that Ryan Day is going? Because I feel like Lou Holtz lives a little rent free in Ryan Day's head.
He does. The beachfront property, bro.
I don't
the whole press conference, or not press, but the whole post game interview talking about, I want to where Lou Holtz is.
Asleep. I'm not worried about you.
I don't think so. I think that they're pretty focused, man. I mean, I watched all the pressers. I think him and Marcus Freeman have a pretty good relationship. I think that they're gonna. I mean, I think they're going to. I mean, they're taking this game with like. I mean, he's like, we got to play our best. I think he'd like to make a statement game. There's a lot more pressure on him than Marcus Freeman, that's for sure. Like Marcus Freeman made Notre Dame likable, so it's very interesting.
It's crazy. I
it's
actually don't hate Notre Dame with him there. Like it's weird, and with all the stuff of like the comparisons of him and Brian Kelly, and like did LSU fuck up and whatever whatever.
I don't think LSU fucked up. He left right before all this NIL shit popped off. He was picking up the crumbles of like it was so like how do you go from being one of the greatest?
No, everything he said was true about that program.
Everything he said was true at the time. Like, and it was I remember it was always annoying to see Notre Dame in the playoff because they get in instead of the Buckeyes, and it would be like,
believe me, when 2012, when the national championship was decided by the SEC championship between us and Bama to go play undefeated Notre Dame and Manti Te'o, and we just couldn't get 5 yards to try to secure that victory. And then Alabama went and boat raced Notre Dame. Like, I would have killed to have that game. I would have killed to be able to boat race Notre Dame and have our first national championship. We had to wait, and then we had to wait till 2021 to get our game. But
Manti Te'o was dealing with the loss of his girlfriend. So
yes, the tragic loss of his girlfriend, of course.
It wasn't even a real person. Poor dude.
I know.
But this is Notre Dame's thing, though. They can get here, but can they actually do it? Because I have Notre Dame friends, and I've said, you've never won a real national championship. I'm sorry, you haven't. Win this one, and I can't say anything. Because you've been giving me shit about beating me. It's like, congrats. You beat a broken, battered Georgia team who pretty much rolled over and beat themselves for you.
Mm-hmm.
in that game.
Yeah, that wasn't. I mean, I remember us talking before. I'm like,
We
this
rolled over.
isn't the same. It was pretty obvious that it wasn't the same Georgia. Like they
No,
were.
not at all. It was gross. It was full of mistakes. It was Gunnar Stockton running for his life. It was the worst offensive line performance we've had in this season. It was all the worst things possible. And Notre Dame just kept us at arm's length because we shot ourselves in the foot 20 times.
Yeah, you had a 1 minute stretch in that game where you coughed up 14 points.
Yep.
You tried to throw the ball with
In the
40
middle
seconds
eight.
left in the first half from your own 25 and strip sack, and they're in the end zone a play later, and then you give up a kickoff return touchdown on the opening kickoff of the second half.
Yep.
Those two plays don't happen. The game's 10-9, and I'm not, obviously those plays did happen, so you can't just remove those plays and leave
Yep.
the rest of them. But the reality is Notre Dame didn't really do much
Mm-hmm.
except get a few field goals, except for those two plays.
Yep.
They
So
had. I mean, they had some. I think there was some pretty good coaching things that Marcus Freeman did.
He did.
Like
Absolutely.
that
Absolutely.
drive, that last drive to kill the clock. I remember sitting there watching with my buddy, and I'm like, they have to kind of go for it here. Like they got to go for it. And he goes, but they. I mean, like, how can we go for it? I mean, if we don't convert, that just looks bad. And I was like, I'm right. You're right. And then they did the cool special teams move that was very well executed.
I was talking about it before you got on. I was like, Marcus Freeman along the line has had one gotcha to every coach.
He's very good at they're very good at execution. Like Notre Dame is not the most talented team, but they're very good at executing. They're very good at doing their jobs well. They're talented enough. They're skilled. Jeremiah Love's not healthy.
No,
so
he's
that
like
hurts
hurt and sick at the same time, I'm pretty sure.
And he's still
I don't think
good.
he's sick anymore. I think he's good now, but he's definitely still hurt. His knee is bad.
Their defensive line's pretty beat up. They don't have their best pass rushers. Their offensive line is pretty pieced together.
Their secondary is really good though.
Their secondary is very good.
Yeah.
And I think that like if they Joel Klatt was saying, like they need to try to get OSU to run up the middle, and OSU has to not bite on the bait of
go up the middle, Ryan Day. Anywhere else, yeah. No run pass, Ryan Day.
That's what I'm saying about Lou Holtz. Like,
he's doing his best.
Is there going to be a little bit in the back of Ryan Day's head where he's going to be tempted to?
I've never seen an old man like this old man having beachfront property in Ryan Day's. Like, it's absurd. Like, it's so going back and forth. As far as this game is concerned, I have my true thoughts and prediction is as it goes. I think at halftime it is going to be anywhere from Ohio State 17 to Notre Dame 10-13. Or maybe Ohio State 21, Notre Dame 14, in that realm. And I think the
depends
final
on how
score,
fast OSU can get started, man. Like I think if they can get started and they cannot make stupid penalties, like even with like
10-7, it might be 10-7 at half or something like that.
Because had they not had the dumb penalties, like OSU could have easily been up like 21-0 on Texas, and then but they'd shoot themselves in the foot, like the stupid Travion Henderson penalty. They go to 2nd and 20. Now, it was kind of bullshit when they're like mobbing Emeka Egbuka and then they come and they hit the guy. Like, I didn't really hear the whistle blow, and the other guys weren't stopping tackle Egbuka. It's like, yeah, I mean, he should go hit those dudes. Like, that was kind of bullshit, but whatever. There's a lot of stupid penalties against Ohio State that they brought on themselves. So if OSU can just keep it creative, like let's keep doing the weird kind of swing route shit. Get the other guys open. Get Travion Henderson the ball in space. He's going to make Notre Dame pay for it. He's just too fast. I mean, even if they can get the ball to even if they shut down Jeremiah Smith, like they have the weapons.
Triple bracket him like they did in Texas tried to do.
Yeah, I mean, so I think it's not a bad second option.
Not at all.
He's actually
he's very good. Carnell Tate, super good. Carnell Tate has been really overshadowed, but this time last year. It was Tate's freshman year, and everyone's like, "Up, Marvin Harrison Jr.'s nuts." I think Marvin Harrison Jr. is pretty good. He never really gets separation. He doesn't get separation. He's not like Devonta Smith, who just.
We talked about this.
Yeah,
I talked about this. Me and Chad. I was like, Jeremiah Smith creates Devontae Smith levels of separation when he can. Like
and he's like a way bigger,
which
more
like you said, like
That's what I
Devontae
said.
Smith's like 160 pounds soaking wet.
It's like if Devontae Smith and David Boston had a baby.
Yeah, well, I mean, pre-steroid Boston, that dude, I love David Boston. That dude was on the sauce pretty hard in the NFL.
Well, he turned himself into a tight end by the end of his career, effectively.
He's he was definitely
overboard.
on some gear, and I don't know what else he was on, but like he was a great player for the Buckeyes. Like I remember John Cooper's one victory against Michigan. He had a pretty good game.
We had that little game winner in the flat, right? In that game.
He had a lot of touchdowns that game. He couldn't beat Nick Saban in Michigan State, which was like Nick Saban said was like the turning point of his career after talking to that. I think I already said that before, but yeah, he's pretty good. I think that like, you know, if we could get, we just need it, but like if Notre Dame can get Will Howard flustered, if they can get an early takeaway, if they can get OSU to make bad decisions, even on the coaching level, then they're in the game. And honestly, the last two games that we played them, like I thought we were gonna boat race them. That Jackson Smith and Jigba got hurt. The game, the like season opener against Notre Dame 2 years ago. Then last year it was like Notre Dame was very good up front, defensively and offensively. This year though, Notre Dame's pretty beat up. I think, you know, I don't know. I'm tempted to take the 9 points, but I don't see. I just don't.
Yeah, so let Tyler finish his because
Tyler.
He had his first half prediction, which is it's going to be one score game, roughly, and then what's your second half prediction?
No, my honest opinion is it's going to be close in the first half. It's going to be like, oh my god, if Notre Dame does this, this, and this, they're going to win the game, and Ohio State's going to say, fucking watch this, and it's going to be anywhere from the realm of 35 to 42 to 17 final score. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So like the Tennessee game, basically.
Right, exactly. I think it's going to be exactly that.
21-10 at the half, and then it's 42-10 before
I think it's going to be closer at the half, though, than that Tennessee game was. I really do think that it's going to be like 17-13, 17-10 in that realm. I could even see Notre Dame getting 21 by the end of the game, like an assurance touchdown. But I think that Ohio State can put up north of 42 points is what I'm seeing here, given how they've seen so far. I think they play their brand of football, and not Notre Dame's. It's a boat race. It's not even close. It could be 42-10, like legitimately. That's how I feel. True. That's my prediction.
I think that's. I mean, I definitely am leaning that direction too. Yeah. I think if I think OSU had that kind of scare of a game the last game. I think, but now they're in the last four quarters. Like I think it was tough to keep that momentum. They weren't the underdog anymore. The best thing they had going for them was that Texas had a lot of people in that crowd, even though like it was hard to tell with how loud the OSU fans were with Jack Sawyer running into the end zone.
Unbelievable. So cool.
That was pretty cool. I'd say, yeah, man, I think that I personally am of the opinion that Ohio State is going to put it together.
I think
it's going to be a very long day for Notre Dame, unfortunately.
42-10. 42-17. Nobody's doing 65-7. I'm sorry, not allowed. Only we could do that. So pick a different score.
Yeah. Well, look.
Yeah, I think Notre Dame's too good for that.
We've had a lot of discussion, debate, and everything like the world over. But even within our little group chat with the four of us about the playoff and the format and whether it's good to have 12 teams. Or whether we need to have 16. I think 16 would be better.
I agree with Chad.
I think 16. It's a really good filter, and it would have been really good to filter out SMU and Indiana and Tennessee in the first round with like them having to go against Alabama, Miami, Ole Miss, or Alabama, South Carolina, Miami, some combination of, all four of those teams, whatever, right?
Yeah.
And then you would see like, okay, well, maybe Ole Miss wasn't that good because Indiana beat them or whatever, but probably not. I'm betting Ole Miss beats the shit out of Indiana because they have that level of talent. And Lane Kiffin, for all the things that I can't stand about him, he has this way of like kind of like what what Sarkisian does, where it's like this little wrinkle here and there. And Chip Kelly too. He's got that offensive mind. But anyway, what I was getting at is that what I've seen from this is that the more we can start to look like the NCAA basketball tournament, the better. I'm not saying go to 64, 68 teams or anything crazy like that. That's absurd. Basketball's different from football.
I mean, they're doing it in high school in Ohio now.
Yeah, but you can do a 16 team playoff, have that group, have that filter improved to where that second round of matchups is going to look like what the semifinal matchups looked like this year. Whereas our second round, I think, still left a lot to be desired. But what I'm noticing is that one thing that is similar to the NCAA format is, you ever watched one of those teams that, like, Kentucky did it a few years back when what's the big Wisconsin Polish kid that beat Kentucky in the national championship? God, I can't remember his name.
Kaminsky?
Yeah, yeah,
Frank
yeah.
Kaminsky?
Frank
Frank,
Kaminsky. Yeah,
Frank, something like that.
yeah. So anyway, that sort of thing where, like, an undefeated team, like, the best thing that could happen to Ohio State was that they lost to Michigan right before the tournament.
Absolute best thing.
Agreed.
It happens all the time in the basketball tournament.
Drops your
where
seeding just to know.
If you lose in your conference tournament, instead of having an 18 game winning streak going into the tournament, you're better off. Like, you get that little loss, it's like a wake up call. It gets everybody's shit together, and you don't have that loss in the tournament. Whereas I've seen it too often where, like, there's a team that rattles off, like the Patriots back in 2007, go undefeated, and then you're like, you have this date with destiny, and you have all this pressure of, like, don't fuck it up, you're undefeated, and then you have somebody who's like, watch this, and Antonio Pierce just comes out there and rips your head off, with Michael Strahan. So I think this sets up really well, and, like, the best thing that could have happened to Ryan Day and to Ohio State was to lose to Michigan in that last weekend. Because
I agree, man. You know what's crazy is, like, I've never heard a Georgia fan say we should fire Kirby Smart because he's only won one time against Alabama.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, it's you're that rivalry between Ohio State and Michigan is the only rivalry in the country that holds that victory over the coach's head. Other than anybody, if Kirby lost to Florida once or twice, like okay, like it's okay, like because we still have success.
But Mark Richt couldn't beat Nick Saban either. So
no, Mark Richt couldn't either. Nobody could beat Nick Saban, if we're being honest.
I mean, even
in his dying moments, we beat Nick Saban. But we talk about that loss early. We had the same thing where we took that loss to Bam in the SEC championship. We got to run it back with him later. Like, it's that you take that loss, take it on the chin, learn from it, get angry about it, and then go take it out on the other teams.
We fired Les Miles. I mean, there were other reasons, but we fired Les Miles effectively because he couldn't beat Alabama anymore. Like, he went 0-8 against Alabama, and at the end of, like, he was like 3-3 to start,
Kirby's
and then
1-6
lost like 7 or 8 in a row. And he lost a few other games that last season before he got fired. But the writing was on the wall. Like, we were calling for, a lot of people were calling for Les Miles. There were people who wanted him to take the Michigan job in 2007 when we won the national championship, because it was like we could have actually gotten rid of him, but instead they went with, I think that was that Rich Rod or Brady Hoke?
I think that was Rich Rod.
I don't remember.
Rich Rod.
Brady. Yeah, but
because they stole him from West Virginia.
Yeah, right. That's right. Because West Virginia was that was the year LaShawn McCoy beat West Virginia and knocked them out of the national championship game, that we ended up in with 2 losses.
Pat McAfee missed the field goal. He talks about it. Yeah, that was crazy. Yeah, he was their kicker. Like, it was because it was Pat White. They had Pat White.
Yeah, Pat White.
That West Virginia team was pretty good. That would have been like.
And listen, and now Rodriguez is back in
he's back. He's back home. It should be good.
I hope that West Virginia football is good for the years to come, because when West Virginia football was good, college football was fun. I just gotta say that. Yeah. Chad, what is your prediction for this game? Honest prediction for the national. Neither one of our teams are in it, so we have to bring the Ohio State homers in to make us have something to talk about.
So I think all right. So yeah, you know me. I'm gonna equivocate a little bit when it comes to something like this because I could see two different things. I think we talked about it before when Jeremiah was on. Ohio State in a blowout or Notre Dame in a close game. I think if it's a one score game, um, I think Ohio State's in trouble. I think if Ohio State does what they need to do, they Notre Dame does not have the firepower to come back from down two scores
Nope.
and win and keep up with, because it's not just coming back from down two scores. You've got to stop Ohio State from scoring more.
Yeah, right.
So
Exactly.
if you're down 31-17, halfway through the third quarter, you got to score a couple of tuds and you got to keep Ohio State from scoring anymore. And I don't see both of those things being possible. Now, if there are a couple of turnovers early and some mistakes and they kind of have, I, I think you remember those Bo Ryan Wisconsin teams. I keep going back to Wisconsin basketball for some reason, but they just had like this bunch of like big like oafy white dudes that would just like box you in a 2-3 and ugly the game up. And next thing you know, it's just you're lucky if you score 50 points. Notre Dame has, for some reason, they have that way of like
Yeah,
putting you in a
keeping
phone
you.
booth,
Yep.
and be like, all right, we're just gonna bare knuckle fight this thing out, and we're gonna ugly this game up. And if
Midwest
Ohio State
football, baby.
if Ohio State gets sucked into playing that type of football, it Notre Dame can keep it close, keep it within a score, and then it's like you're hoping
And
that
then it's like the
you don't make
Nebraska
a
game, or
fatal
it's like,
error.
Yep.
yeah, it's
Yeah,
like the Nebraska game, or it's like the Michigan game. I
Michigan
mean,
Have,
game. Yeah, and you're
have
even
you,
hoping you
Nebraska.
don't
I
make
mean,
a fatal error.
that was an ugly win. Like OSU got lucky to beat Nebraska.
dude,
Mhm.
Drew? Don't you just love the fact that the national championship is being decided by old-fashioned Midwest football?
I do actually. Yeah, I was pretty happy to see like the only team missing from the Final Four for being most hated was Michigan.
Yeah,
Texas is pretty hated though, and obviously like Ohio State. I feel like everybody hates Ohio State. So
You, you don't think Alabama's in the
no,
well,
not
mix?
anymore because they don't have Nick Saban. I think they lost the luster. I
there
think
we
like
Chad and
Yeah,
I
maybe.
harbor Chad and I's hate carries over from years of Nick
Yeah,
Saban.
I
yeah,
did. I grew up watching LSU lose to Bear Bryant. I hated Alabama before y'all were born.
Yeah,
no, that's
So
true.
that's
like
You know, it was interesting talking about the Buckeye fans. Like everybody worships Woody Hayes, and I'm not like trying to shit on Woody Hayes. Like he won national championships. A lot of them were like,
better not. He might punch you.
yeah.
I mean, he was kind of at the end. Like he had lost right before he did punch that Clemson player. He had like lost 3 in a row to Michigan, and that's the one game he played Bear Bryant. He got embarrassed. Um, and he was only 16-11-1 against Michigan. So it's like, like even like there's like a program that goes off, oh, Woody Hayes, he won all these national championships. It's like, did he though? Like, how many of those games was it him beating the number 2 team in the country for
Right.
it? Probably none of them. Like,
Well, and that's why I make the argument for like the playoff will be. I think it'll be like perfected when it's 16 teams and when they
yeah,
actually just seed the teams. There, and I'm torn on the idea of like the home games for the first round. I'm not opposed
I
to it,
like it, man. I mean,
but
I like it. I think it's dope.
Imagine if Georgia wouldn't have gotten a bye and they would have gotten a home game and they could have worked
yeah,
out some kinks in their offense against.
right.
I
Been
mean, who
pretty
would they have
lit.
played? They would have probably had to play an SEC team, or maybe they would have
Yeah,
played
they would have played
Miami.
like Miami or South Carolina or
Mhm.
somebody like that. And it was like, well, the only thing is though, I think at that point you're probably playing Clemson or one of those other
We'd probably get
Clemson
the
or
Notre
Arizona
Dame
State or
spot.
somebody.
We'd probably get
Um,
that, or not Notre Dame. We'd probably get the sixth
because
spot behind Notre Dame or some weird thing.
You would have
Florida,
probably played SMU. I agree. You would have gotten
Honestly,
yeah,
SMU.
if we didn't win the SEC championship and they still put us there, we were going on the road. That's
yeah,
like
yeah.
we were
Oh, no
1000%
doubt,
going on the road.
no doubt.
We might have
But
gone to the
so
shoe.
yeah,
You know,
so what I'm saying though is like when you do that and you seed it correctly and you do all those things, um, now you create this shit. What were we talking about before? I got
You're talking
sidetracked.
about the perfect playoff, and you
yes.
didn't know if you wanted home games. You don't know about that.
Oh well, just that the to build this filter. No, we were talking about
Yeah.
having the perfect. Shit.
Oh, I'm glad I derailed your thought, Chad.
Yeah,
Sorry.
I know, right?
Thanks
Yeah,
for having
thanks a
me
lot
on.
for that. Damn,
You're
man.
literally talking about 16 teams. You didn't know if you liked home games or
No,
not.
but I'm saying before that, why I brought up the playoff.
Oh,
Because you're
because
talking
of
about Woody
Woody
Hayes.
Hayes not having a legitimate national championship.
Oh, yes. There you go. See, thank you. That's what I was. All right. So if we go back to the Woody Hayes era of college football, you know who our national champion this year is? It's Oregon.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. If we go back to the BCS era, national championship, you know who our national championship game matchup is? Oregon versus Georgia.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
If we go back to the 4-team playoff, do you know who our 4 teams are?
It would be
Oregon, Georgia. Uh, I don't know if it probably either Boise State or Arizona State. They probably would have snuck one of them in.
Yep.
and Notre Dame.
It would have been, yeah, and Notre Dame. Maybe Notre Dame, but I don't know if Notre Dame
I
would it have
think
been
Penn
Notre Dame
State
or would
gets
it have
in
been
there though.
Texas
No,
or Penn
Penn State wouldn't have made
No,
it.
because Penn State had 2 losses too.
I think
And
they
so
Yeah,
sneak
they would have given
Texas
it
in
to
there.
Notre Dame because they had 1 loss. They're
Yeah,
not going to not put a 1-loss Notre Dame team.
Yeah,
which
probably
is
so. You're probably
that's
right.
exact discourse is why I'm glad they expanded it because then you have to do a bunch of
Yeah.
shoehorning nonsense for your bottom your 3 and 4.
Yeah.
Right, and that's the thing is that I think what we had was in the 14 playoff, it was so restrictive that it almost made them make dumber decisions because like the year they left Alabama out and put TCU in when they lost the Big 12 championship game to Kansas State with Will Howard, by the way, and then the year that they left Georgia out last year when
Mm-hmm.
they put in Alabama instead of Florida State, and it's like if all of those teams are in there, I think Georgia might have won the whole thing.
I
I mean,
so
I think OSU staying together as a team last year, they would have that wasn't a bad team. They were 1
No,
loss.
and you only had you had 1 loss or 2.
We only had 1. We had 2
1.
because the
Yeah,
Missouri
see,
game, which is
and
crazy.
that,
Like we lost all these players to the portal, and guys just weren't going to play. Marvin Harrison didn't play. There's something going on with the offensive line. I'm guessing it was a money issue because half those dudes didn't play, and so there was like a lot of weird shit going on. And it just wasn't the same team in
No, but at
in
the
that
time of
bowl
the
game.
playoff, being announced, you had 1 loss, so you would have been in as a
Yeah.
12 team, and
Yeah,
Georgia would
our
have been.
1 loss was to Michigan.
Bro, it's probably Ohio State versus Georgia in the national championship, if we're being honest. And
I don't know, man. That Michigan squad was really
Michigan was
good.
pretty good. Yeah, Michigan was pretty good.
I mean, as far as
Harbaugh had finally put it together.
They
And that
did
Washington
almost
team
lose
was
to
pretty
Alabama,
good.
and Alabama had to fumble the snap to not win.
I think what I think is funny is that we ended up having the most roundabout way of getting one of the preseason favorites to win the national championship in the national championship. Like my prediction for the national championship preseason was, I mean, obviously homer pick was either us in Ohio State or us in Oregon.
Yeah.
So Ohio State was always one of my picks to be in the national championship, bar none, and they made it very difficult and did the most roundabout, windy road way. But here they are, and I think we're talking. If we do a recap, when we do a recap, that we're talking, we're celebrating Ohio State's victory over Notre Dame, and maybe
and another
did you ever
blip
want
in
Marcus
the
Freeman?
sea of SEC dominance where the Big Ten will get one.
Listen, it's the second in a
You
row.
mean their second in a row, bud?
No, it's their second in a row.
Are we
SEC.
counting the Michigan national championship when they like?
They weren't cheating. Everyone wants to complain. Everybody steals signs. As an OSU fan, I'm tired of hearing about it. They had a good squad. They're gonna have two guys going in the top 10 probably on the defensive side of the ball this year. I just think that that was a good Michigan team. Now we all thought. I mean, I'm interested to see what happens to OSU next year because we're losing a ton of guys.
A lot. Yeah.
You guys say your mercenaries are all going.
But hey, gentlemen, I appreciate you having me on. Sorry I was a little late. I got to get going.
Yep, likewise.
You can rap,
dude. You guys are awesome. I did listen to the last week's show yesterday. I just wanted you to know that it was very good. It's hard. I don't get notified. You're pretty shadow banned. So I don't know. Even when I search South End Zone, it does not want to.
You subscribed? You got to subscribe.
I'm subscribed. It still does not want to show me your show.
That's crazy.
Just thought you guys should know that. All right, I'll see you guys.
Shadow ban YouTube. All right, man. We'll let you go. Go Buckeyes.
Appreciate you guys.
We'll see you next time for a Gloat Fest, hopefully.
Absolutely. Later.
All right, peace. Take care, Drew. And
Wow,
with
here we
that,
are.
we will say sayonara. It is time to like, to share, to subscribe, to comment. There were a lot of comment worthy things said on this show. So bring them. Let's hear your thoughts on this. Give us your score predictions. But yeah, Tyler. So I feel like your prediction's probably pretty spot on. That somewhere in that 42-17, 35-21 kind of
Yep, it's
range
it's going to be that range.
is pretty likely. But I do see a scenario where it's a 24-23 and Notre Dame's got the ball and they're trying to get into field goal range
Mitch
and
Jeter could be the
keep the
hero
field goal.
once again
Yeah.
to take the game winner
So,
with the dad
or
recording.
or it's 24-23 Notre Dame and Ohio State's trying to get a field
Yeah.
goal and then Jeremiah is crapping himself because he doesn't want to have to go down to that. So yeah, that's it's national championship time, people. The 12-team playoff worked. It did its job. It got us the matchup that the teams earned it. They deserve to be there. And we get to decide this thing on the field, and hopefully we'll get to 16 teams soon. But for now, this is good enough. We'll take it. It's way better than no teams, 2 teams, or 4 teams. So
No teams.
yeah, no national championship game. Number 1 will play number 13 in the Cotton Bowl. Number 2 will play number 8 in the Sun Bowl, and number 3 will play number 4.
The bowl tie-in
It's
is
like,
what's
what?
keeping this from being what it needs to be, and I will
Yeah.
stand on that fact. But we will talk to y'all about that another time.
Yes. Peace, everybody. Thank y'all for coming through. We are out of here, the South End Zone. We'll see you next time. Peace.